This is rental car number 159, and today I'm driving the 2020 Chevy Corvette Stingray 3LT Z51. This is the most expensive rental I have ever had, coming in at a whopping $388.60 for 24 hours, and it was completely worth it. If you didn't get it by the full name, 3LT is the trim level. This is the top trim. Plus, we have the Z51 Performance Package. That's an extra $5,000 on top of the sticker price. That brings this one to a whopping $85,440 MSRP. Crazy expensive. I have absolutely no business driving something like this, but it was a blast. So there's a ton to talk about. There's chapters below if you want to skip around. Otherwise, let's jump right in. So in my normal reviews, I usually say something like, all right, let's look under the hood, but that doesn't really apply here. When you pop open the hood, you see there is no engine because it's in the rear of the vehicle, but you do get a small storage space up here, which is pretty convenient and has a USB port in it. If you want to look at the engine, you got to pop open the back. There's also a small storage space back here, and you can use that to store the roof if you do decide to take the top off. The engine, I mean, it's just gorgeous, and it's enormous and has quite a bit of specs. I'm not going to talk about numbers forever, but let me throw some things at you. It's a rear-wheel drive, 6.2-liter V8 direct injection engine. This one has the Z51 Performance Package. That's an extra $5,000. If you're curious, you get an 8-speed dual clutch transmission. It's automatic, but you do get paddle shifters if you want to play around. Kicks out 495 horsepower at 6,450 RPMs. And technically, this thing can go 0 to 60 in under 3 seconds. I wasn't crazy enough to try that out, but I did push it quite a bit for me. Fuel, you gotta fill it up with premium. It's a little bit more expensive, but hey, that's what you pay when you get a car like this. And your miles per gallon, surprisingly, isn't that bad. At least what the EPA tells us is that in the city you get 15, on the highway you get 27 with a combined rating of 19. Fuel cap's on the driver's side, and your fuel tank has 18.5 gallons of fuel, but all those numbers go out the window because it is impossible not to slam on the accelerator when you're driving this thing, and that fuel economy just goes out the window. But look, we're just going to have to accept that when we're driving a car like this. Alright, so let me take you for a tour inside. I always like to start with the key fob. I know it's not super interesting, but it's nice to see. You got a Corvette's logo on the back, a couple of buttons on the front. You can open the hatch, the hood, lock and unlock, remote start, and then a panic button. There's also a hidden key inside if you press this button right here. So there's the key fob. Remote start, push button right here on the dash. Let's start her up. A lot of buttons on the steering wheel. Over here on the left hand side we have our cruise controls. We got Z mode right here. I'll show you that in a second. Some small switches on the bottom to toggle through your favorites, all along with a paddle shifter and a stalk. On the right hand side, same thing, stalk and paddle shifter. Stalks are not special, all the standard stuff there. You have some directional keypad controls right here to interact with the gauge cluster screen up top. Heated steering wheel, which is actually really nice right now. Virtual assistant, and then you can hang up a phone call if you have your phone connected via Bluetooth, and then volume controls down here. These, you reach behind the steering wheel and then push up on them. You actually can't push down at all, but they feel really intuitive as you're driving. So a nice steering wheel setup. It is a square shape, which makes it a little easier to drive aggressively, at least I find. You can grab that corner and really pull it over to the side. Gauge cluster is a full screen, so this entire thing is a screen, and you can cycle through a lot of different looks if that's what you want. Right now we have the car in park. Obviously we're not going anywhere, and then you have information about the oil, tire pressure, engine temperature, your gauge cluster down here, and then we have a trip counter right here on the right hand screen right now. Now you can cycle through a bunch of screens on the right hand side by pressing the directional keypad right here. Let me show you a few. I'm not going to go over all of them, but we have a trip counter, performance, so we can go 0 to 60 and the car will time itself, audio, maintenance screens, options, and then a simplify screen, which I've never seen before and I really like. So if you press this wheel right here down, what it'll do is it'll remove some of the screens that you don't actually need for driving and just clean things up a little bit. So I don't know, doesn't it look nicer? All right, so let's change the look real quick once or twice just so I can give you an idea of the types of things you can do to customize this screen. So I'm in the options screen, going to display design. We're in track right now. Let's put it on sport. You see how the whole screen changes? So now we have RPMs prominent right in the center, and then a digital speedometer right here on the bottom. Let's do one more. Actually, this is the speed limit up here for you. Let's go to display design, and let's go to, I don't want weather, that sounds boring. Let's go to tour. All right, a little nicer, still RPMs with a digital speedometer now in the middle, what gear we're in. I like this quite a bit, easy to see, and man, I love customization, especially for gauge clusters. It's fun to play around and find the one that you actually like. So, gauge cluster, steering wheel. Over to the left, pretty standard stuff. Window controls, your mirror controls are up here. You can also fold in the side view mirrors by pressing that button. They also do that when you lock the vehicle, which I just find really satisfying. Memory seat buttons over here. A little down below, we have the button that you'll press to actually open the door. There's no latch, so you have to press this button to get out. Lock and unlock buttons, and then tucked a little bit further down, we have buttons to release both the hatch and the hood. Up on the dash, we have our HUD controls. So you do have a heads-up display. It's projected over the car and onto the road in front of you. Do you see it a little bit? We can actually move it by pressing this button, change it by pressing this one, and then the third button adjusts the brightness, which I have all the way up. So by pressing the HUD button, I can move it up and down so that it's in a convenient spot for me. You don't have total control, so you can't put it anywhere. There's actually maybe a 2-foot area that you can adjust it, but it's nice that you can adjust it. Now I'm going to press the info button, and you'll see that there are 3 screens we can cycle through. So right now we have what gear we're in, our miles per hour, and then the speed limit on the road that I'm parked on. If I push it once, now we get RPMs and a little bit more information about what gear we're in. If I press it one more time, now we just get the gear and the miles per hour. This is the one I like to keep it on. A couple more things I want to show you. Rear view mirrors, pretty standard, but you do get blindside detection. And that's needed because you can't really glance over your shoulder. Visibility is pretty poor in this vehicle, right? You can see this right here. You can't even see what's behind us. So having blindside detection is pretty nice. It's this little icon right here in the upper left-hand corner, and it'll illuminate in yellow if someone is in your blind spot. So those are all the controls on the left-hand side. Let me shift your focus over here onto the right-hand side, and we have more. So we have a touch screen that I'll show you in a second. Down here we have your gear shift. Push the button to put it in park, pull up to put it in reverse, and then that rear view camera will automatically activate. Push the button to put it in neutral, pull up to put it in drive, and then you can also push this M button right here to put it in manual mode, and then you can use those paddle shifters to shift as you're going down the road. You also get a mode dial right here that's protected by this nice leather piece, and it's a pretty big dial right here. And then as you move it, so I'm going to push it to the, turn it to the left, you will cycle through all the drive modes. So let me go all the way to the right. Track mode, sport, you see it changing down here. Tour, my mode, so you can actually set it up to be exactly how you like it, and then a weather mode as well. All right, let's talk about Z mode real quick. It's this button right here on the steering wheel. It's pretty easy to push. You'll see that it's illuminated in a red color right now, meaning that it's on, and you can control it using the center display over here. So let me go back to the home screen. So you need to go into settings, and then you see Z mode under the vehicles tab. And now we have control over a bunch of stuff about the vehicle. So we can change the engine sound, the steering, the suspension, and the powertrain. And this will dramatically change the way the car feels and drives. So you can customize this, change the vehicle to how you like it, and then you can come over here and just push this button when you have the vehicle on to activate it. It's kind of like having almost like almost like, you know, dedicated seat controls, right? I'm driver number 1, so this is the way I want my seat. Now, since this is my primary vehicle, I can have control of Z mode, and I can have the vehicle go is exactly how I like it. You don't see this on a lot of lower end vehicles. This is really nice, especially if you're into customization and you really like to tweak things and feel a little bit of difference while you're driving around.
So that's Z mode. Let's get back to the controls on the dash.
Traction control, you can lift up the nose of the car in case you need to go over a speed bump by pressing this button right here, and then you can activate the front cameras right here so that you can help yourself if you need to park. I haven't had to use this. I mean, it's not that big of a vehicle, but considering how expensive it is, if I do need to squeeze into a tight parking space, I will definitely be taking advantage of this. Tons more buttons, right? So look at all of these along the dash. So we have heated and cooled seats to adjust the temperature for yourself, and then your passenger down here, fan controls, the direction of your vent, an on-off button, and then your defroster settings right here, along with heated and cool seats for your passenger. Feels really overwhelming when you first get in the vehicle, but it's kind of nice to have all of these manual controls because you can just hit the button that you need, change it, and not have to worry about it. And you certainly don't have to go through all the menu structures in the display itself, you know, to find what you're looking for. Cup holders right here with a nice lid to keep it closed off when you don't need it. And then you have a center armrest right here that opens up, reveals a small storage space with USB ports and an auxiliary jack. And then you also have a special place right here for your phone with contact charging if you want to take advantage of that technology. And then a nice big speaker right here on the top. So, I mean, there's quite a bit, but it's designed in a way where it doesn't feel overwhelming after you've been in the car for a few minutes. So I'm feeling a little bit calmer right now. Let me show you the display. So I've pressed the button to put us on home, right? Audio screen, phone, nav. You can use a Wi-Fi hotspot. Users settings so that you can actually customize things if there's multiple drivers. Setting screen, of course, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto automatically loaded onto the vehicle. You get some apps, nothing super exciting. Your camera, a marketplace to download more apps, climate controls if you do want to use the touch screen. But as I said, I really prefer using the manual controls. Let's go back to home. And then your PDR screen, which is something that's kind of interesting. So you can actually load an SD card into the system, and then you can record your driving. Let me show you kind of what it would look like. So this will be an overlay, and then you have the camera facing out in front of the vehicle. So you record what you're where you're driving, and then your performance at the same time. Then you can pop that out, and maybe if you're an aspiring YouTuber like myself, you can upload that and share it with everybody else. So not a overwhelming display. I mean, there's fun stuff on here to use, but really, and why I like this car so much, is that the focus is really on the driving experience and not on the technology. All right, now normally I don't talk about the rear view mirror because it's not that interesting, but this is a little bit different. This is not a mirror at all. This is actually a display showing us what's behind the vehicle. And you need this because if you were to turn around and try and look out the rear of the vehicle, visibility is pretty bad. I mean, you can see the engine, which I think is pretty cool, and there is a small window past that you can see to the outside, but seeing to the right or the left or even what's kind of lower down to the road is almost impossible. So it is nice to have something like this with such a wide view of what's behind us. It is a little weird though. So when you're looking at the road and driving down and you do what you normally do, which is just glance right here to see what's behind you, I find that I guess my brain can't register this display instantaneously. Maybe I'm just trained to expect glass, and when I see a display, my mind gets a little confused. So for me, it's taken a little getting used to, and I gotta be honest, I'm not sure I'm a fan. Although, you know, from a technology standpoint, it's actually gorgeous and done extremely well. I don't know, maybe I'm old-fashioned and I prefer actual mirrors. But just keep that in mind if you're thinking about driving this vehicle. This is something that takes a bit of getting used to. All right, I jumped in the passenger seat. Now, I'm about 6 feet tall on a good day, and I got plenty of leg room. My knees are nowhere near that dash, and I can actually stretch my legs out all the way if I choose to. And that's pretty awesome for a performance sports car like this. Sometimes the passenger seats are really cramped. Not a ton of amenities over here. You do have, window controls, the button to let you out of the vehicle, your door locks, and then actually memory seat buttons over here as well, which is, I don't think I've ever seen that for a passenger. And then you do have electronic controls for both the driver and the passenger to adjust the seats. And then we have 2 vents right here, and then a glove box. I'm assuming, actually I haven't tried this button will open the glove box. All right, I was right. So, right now this is the owner's manual, insurance stuff. All right, if I take that all out, you can see that the glove box is not huge, but it gets all the stuff you need in there, so it's fairly functional. One thing that is kind of strange is, all these manual controls right here on the dash do kind of infringe on the passenger's space a little bit. So I kind of feel like I'm in an airline seat where I have to sit, really with my arms really close to my sides. But whatever, it's going to be an amazing experience to ride as a passenger in this vehicle. All right, so let's talk about driving this thing at lower speeds. And I really just mean tooling around a parking lot. Some of these higher end vehicles are actually really hard to park, at least for someone like me that doesn't drive them very often. But I've found this to be extremely responsive. I mean, parking it is a breeze. And if you do need a little bit of assistance, it is nice that you have these front-facing cameras to help you. Also, if you need to reverse, the cameras are actually pretty nice as well. And I've had to really rely on these quite a bit. So I'm backing up right now into that parking space. Look at that. Normally I miss it by a mile, but after just a little bit of practice driving this thing, I was able to get it pretty easily. And then you can do more of a fisheye view right here to make sure you're actually in that parking space. I gotta say, those guides are super helpful while you're driving around, and so is that front-facing camera. Visibility is just a little bit different in this vehicle than in others, so it's nice to have a little bit of help, especially if you're someone like me who's just renting it for a little bit and isn't really comfortable driving it. So, all in all, low speeds, I feel pretty comfortable. Let's take it out on the street and go a little bit faster. So maybe up to like 45. I'm gonna take you through some gentle curves and just sort of explain how I'm feeling while I'm driving. It is really evident though. I mean, we are so low, especially when you're behind another car. You just notice how low this thing rides. And it's kind of fun because it's so different from anything I've driven lately. Can you see what I mean by driving so low in the vehicle? I'm used to being much higher up. You can see like the mufflers on the Explorer ahead of us. And I feel like we're so low that the other cars are way up higher ahead of us. It makes it feel a little bit like a video game. Maybe you drive cars like this all the time. I certainly don't. It adds to the experience. I feel like I'm floating right above the road rather than riding up high above it, and it just makes it a lot more fun to drive. I also feel like I'm in much more control. All right, so if you can see the HUD, we're going at about 30, 35 through these curves. Normally when I'm driving, I'd say like a lower end sedan, I can push it up to maybe 40 and feel comfortable, but beyond that, I don't feel like I have the control that I need to make sure I don't hit the curb. But that is not true on this vehicle. The handling is just so tight that I'm pretty sure I could push it well over 50 through these curves and be fine. Actually, let's do that right now. So we're at 52. Yeah, it's just a piece of cake. That is wonderful. Let's turn, let's do a U-turn and see what the turning radius is like. All right, we didn't drift into the second lane at all, and we actually, we were over 10 miles an hour while we were doing that. Well, that's not too bad. So just cruising along at what I would consider like normal speeds, you know, 40, 45, handling is really tight. I mean, if you look, I'm just manipulating the steering wheel just a little bit and you get an instant amount of turn, and that's not always true on these vehicles. Sometimes there is a little bit of a delay, but this is just so crisp that it makes driving really fun. I'm actually finding myself accelerating both in and out of these curves, which is, I mean, that's pretty dangerous, right? I'm just bound to get a speeding ticket if I drive this thing for too long. Let's do one more U-turn, and then let's play around with acceleration a little bit. Now, I'm in an office park, so I can't go crazy, but we can see what kind of acceleration we have. First thing I want to test is accelerating while we're already moving. So we're at 30, and when I get to a straightaway, so I don't crash this thing, I'm going to slam on the accelerator, and let's see how instantly we get a burst of speed. What I would like to see is that an almost instantaneous amount of just forward acceleration. So after this curve, we'll have a nice straightaway. All right, are you ready? 1, 2, 3, go. Jeez, oh my goodness. That was nuts. So there is a delay. You know, I drove a Tesla recently. That accelerates, I mean, it's just the second you hit the pedal. There's a little bit of a delay, maybe half a second, but then you just hear that engine rev up, get really loud, and then you rock it forward. And that's just, it's so satisfying to feel the vehicle respond both physically and audibly at the same time. I don't know, I just love this car. Let's go to a complete stop. Now you see there's a curve up there, so I'm not going to be stupid crazy, but let's accelerate pretty fast. 40, 45. So I didn't floor it because, I mean, it's an office park and there's other places for us to do that together. I just wanted to give you kind of a taste for what it accelerates like. Do you feel that power? I mean, I certainly do driving this. It pulls you forward and it's just so loud that it's really, really satisfying when you're accelerating. I mean, just listen to that. Jeez. Man, that's nice. Are we in sport mode? Let me look. Tour. Yeah, we're in sport mode. Okay, that's probably why it sounds just so satisfying. All right, so we got to look at cabin noise. So let's do that while we go to the highway so that I can test things out at much, much higher speeds. And let's hope the state police aren't out in force today. Otherwise, we're definitely going to get a speeding ticket today. But it'll be well worth it. Because, I mean, we've got to experience this thing in all of its glory, right? I can't drive around the suburbs at 30 miles an hour and feel like I got my money's worth of this rental. So I'm going to hang a right up here, and after traffic passes, I'm going to be quiet for a minute, and let's just focus on cabin noise for a moment. So I don't know about you, but I can hear some wind, which is not that bad. I don't mind that at all. Can't hear much else. So there are cars going by, and I can't really hear them at all. So that tells me the cabin noise is pretty good. Obviously, you can hear the engine, right? I mean, I want that. I don't want that to be muffled at all. Let me turn on the radio a second. I'm going to turn the volume up. Yeah, I mean, we're going 40, and I could hear the guy on the radio pretty clearly. Definitely hear the music. I could hear both the bass and the drum and the flute that I think was playing. And that's at an extremely low volume. So that tells me that there is no problem with cabin noise on this vehicle. But, I mean, let's take it out on the highway. Let's get it up to maybe like an 80 mile per hour range, and then we'll see what's going on with cabin noise. All right, so we're about to get on the interstate. I am going to go through this toll, and then there's a car behind us. So what I want to do is pull over right here, let this guy get by. We're gonna have to get him pretty far. And then I'll see if I can do a little accelerating. All right, we're at a dead stop. Are you ready? I'm pretty excited. Here we go. Wow. There's too much traffic right now. How are we supposed to go 100 with all these cars? So let's talk about handling at higher speeds. So I'm at about 60 right now. I feel pretty in control. Let's see if we can get around this big truck right here. So it doesn't take a lot to change lanes, which is nice. And I feel like even at 75, I'm completely in control. It's just a little bit of adjustment of the steering wheel. We can go within the lane. It takes a little bit more to get us out of the lane. I feel like I'm extremely in control, and even at 75, I feel like I can go much, much faster. 80. It doesn't feel like the car is anywhere near its peak. In fact, I'm barely pushing down on the accelerator to maintain 80 miles an hour. Now, my normal daily driver is a minivan, and I have to actually keep constant pressure on the accelerator to keep a speed like this. But with the Corvette, man, 80 feels like nothing. Let's see if we can get around this guy. Yeah, we're at 90, and there's no question the car can go much, much faster. Although we got a lot of traffic today, so I'm not going to be able to push it. Maybe I'll have to take this thing out at night when there's a lot fewer cars and really experience the acceleration. But handling at this speed is just effortless. I mean, I feel like changing lanes at 80 miles an hour is nothing. The car feels extremely stable, and I feel like I'm in complete control. Also, even at 70, when I tap on the accelerator, I mean, it just pulls forward. It's like 70 miles an hour is nothing. We need to get it way, way higher before we're going to reach the upper limits of this vehicle. One thing I am noticing, and I'm sure you are too, is that, you know, at 70, 80 miles an hour, that cabin noise really does become much more apparent. I feel like I have to raise my voice to talk to you. And I think that listening to anything over the entertainment features is probably going to be a little bit more challenging. But, I mean, I don't really care. I'm focused on the driving, not so much on what's going on, you know, entertainment-wise around the vehicle. I do think, though, that holding a conversation at that speed would be, I don't know, a little bit more challenging. So just, I mean, keep that in mind if you're thinking about driving this vehicle. All right, so I did end up taking it out at night. Let me show you 0 to 60 one more time. It's just too much fun. I'm gonna be quiet for a second. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. Look, it's hard for me to explain in words what it feels like to drive this vehicle. It is, it's like you're a different person. I mean, I'm a pretty conservative driver. Got kids, a minivan. I take things pretty seriously when I'm behind the wheel, but I could feel myself being really crazy every time I took this thing out. It's like I needed to go 120. It was just in my brain saying, go for it, go for it, go for it. Didn't film that part, but if you drive this thing, I'm going to call it a thing, trust me, you're going to have the same experience. It's amazing. If you could afford it, go for it. You will not be disappointed. So I did not drive around with the top off because it's still pretty cold out right now, but I wanted to show you what it's like to take it off. It's pretty easy. 3 little latches inside the vehicle, and then the manual scares the crap out of you. It makes it seem like if you touch this roof in the wrong way, it's going to fall apart. So I had my wife help me out. Actually, it's not too bad. You just got to give it a nice firm yank forward and up, and the thing pops off pretty easily. It's very, very light, so I can see why the manual wants you to be so careful with it. And then stowing it in the back is actually pretty easy. There's some nice hooks back there that connect to the roof and hold it in place, which is, it's just nice to see that level of design. And it just tucks away back there, and you can, you know, put down the hatch and drive away. And then installing it back was surprisingly easy. You just kind of
muscle it in place a little bit, redo those latches, and you're all done. I gotta be honest, personally, I don't like the roof coming off. It adds to the cabin noise quite a bit, and I don't see myself ever utilizing it. But still, just wanted to share and show you what it was like. All right, so that's pretty much everything end to end on this one. I mean, $388 is ridiculous to spend for 24 hours on a vehicle. I splurged because I just wanted to treat myself. COVID's been a nightmare for me and my family, and sometimes you just got to have some fun. If you can afford something like this, man, you got to try this thing out. It is, it's an experience that I wish you all could have. Anyway, so with that being said, look, you're not going to be shocked. I'm going to give this one 5 stars. It is what it is. It's an expensive, fuel-draining muscle car, and it's wonderful. Is it the best vehicle out there? Probably not. But is it a ton of fun to drive? Absolutely. I do not regret blowing $388 on a day. So that's my take. If you have any comments, I would love to hear from you. Please leave me a comment below. I'll do my best to respond. Otherwise, look, thank you so much for watching this one. I really appreciate it. And I hope you join me next time when I'm back renting and reviewing my 160th rental car. I'll see you then.